Who's in charge of the technology, Rabbi?
You're looking at it. I'm not a good
discuss it here. It's just it's a small shala. You see how much halachas you need to know to unravel the shala. So the question was that, if I say it over correctly, that a lady ordered something from a store, and they delivered her non-kosher wine. She wasn't aware about it, and she obviously the seller was from a person, but by mistake, they sent her non-kosher wine, and she used the wine for cooking. Made a fancy meal. They used expensive china, and after everything was eaten, geschmack, the next day, the storekeeper says, "I'm so sorry, I sent you non-kosher wine." So now, there's many questions. First of all, does she have to pay for the wine? Sold me the wrong wine. Second of all, does she not so what? Can she demand money for the food that got moved? And worst of worst is kasher dishes. This was licheres, expensive, which she told me was over $3,000 worth, as I said. So can she, how do we kasher? Can we kasher? Can she? If she cannot kasher, then we have a right to demand the money for kashering.
One more detail, she didn't use the whole set. She doesn't know which dishes she used and which dishes she didn't use.
Most was not used.
The rate was not used.
That's the question. Now let me just explain the shama.
One second, was the wine bottled in the food that she cooked?
No. Anyone who cooks wine with food knows that is.
No, but it was a large amount of wine, and it was not so much.
My wife is Hungarian, and Hungarians put their wine to food, and it's very tasty. You feel the wine. So anyway, let's start the first question. Is the wine oseh b'hanu or not? So the first question, what is the question oseh b'hanu? It's non-kosher wine, the kosher wine. The question is, first of all, we have to judge, does the wine get touched? You know what I mean? We assume sure the wine gets touched. I asked the Herzog, we have one of the Herzog lives in the Damas in my shul and who runs the whole winery up there, the young guy, he says there has to be some touching going on. Very hard, even with the big machines, because they keep on tasting the wine. I don't want to go to Hilchos Yain, but the probability that the wine was touched is very high. So, the wine, it might be oseh b'hanu.
If it's yain stam?
Yain stam? The yain stam is really oseh b'hanu. Let me explain this. That means Chazal said the goy touches wine, not only he cannot drink it, but he cannot have a nur. But the Rishonim say the minig was, very interesting minig, the Rishonim say, it's very interesting Rashba, I always like to quote. The Rashba says like this, Bishon, I live in Barcelona, the Rashba lived, was then Muslims, before King Isabella, the Machshefer who introduced, kicked the Jews out of Spain. But before that, it was Muslims. So Bishlan, I live in a Muslim country. If a goy touches the wine, it's not oseh b'hanu, it's only oseh b'shtia. Because a non-avodah zorah person touches wine, it's only oseh b'shtia, cannot drink it, but it's not oseh b'hanu. If a guy who worships avodah zorah touches wine, a Christian and a Catholic, and any of these who believe in Yashka, who worship Yashka, is avodah zorah, they touch wine, it comes oseh b'hanu.
It's not shita?
it's still with the Zohar. It's not allowed. It is with the Zohar.
Jews and Judaism over here. Oh, you can go.
No, it is with the Zohar.
Everybody agrees that's called.
Everyone agrees Yoshka is with the Zohar. There's nothing to talk about. The question is the Shema people.
It's never Shitut.
Yeah, but it's with the Zohar.
It's a holiday for us, not for them.
Yeah, there's
It's for them with the Zohar too.
That's what Jews and Judaism is asking.
No, it is Avodah Zorah. Yoshka is worship, and it's Avodah Zorah, and there's Yurig al Yahweh, and a goy who worships Yoshka is Chayev Misa.
But depends. What? Rabbi, there's many different sects of Christianity.
One soul is a prophet. Protestants or something?
Protestants or they believe in monotheism.
Yeah, they believe that they make, that's where they broke off, right? The Protestants broke off.
In Brazil,
They held, what is that?
Brasiliana, a lot of the ground like this.
Yeah, they held that he was a nuvi. He wasn't. But the ones who Yoshka is Avodah Zorah, they bow down and they, I'm not such a book in the but that's nothing to talk. The Shitta has nothing to do with this. We could talk for hours about this.
Commercialized wine, a factory that makes
So the kids says if a Christian touches wine, it should be osavandua. Tosis says the meaning was not that way. Meaning to say, like at Chila, the Baal Tosis says, do not go into business selling Goyish wine. Like at Chila, don't do that. But if it's osavandua, but it happened. Your father asked me, many people ask me every time this there, they get gifts from people on kosher wine. He says, just pass it over to the shiksa. We don't go out and get it. What we meaning is, once we get it, we don't say it's osabano. So now, what is this negate for us? Because if this is osabanu, she could demand the money back for the wine. She doesn't have to pay for the wine. So what happens if a guy, by mistake, the storekeeper sold you a chazabam, it's non-kosher meat. So if it's not kosher meat, he says, I made a mistake, I sent you, and the guy ate it. If it's an issa, it's chazul mitavanu, and the guy ate it, he has a right to demand the money back. Even though the guy ate it, it was used up. But no one's interested in eating non-kosher meat, so you can demand his money back. But if it's an issa derabanan, he's selling you cholavakim, cheese, any of these things, it's only the Rabbanan, then you cannot ask the money back. Only if it's an Issa Hamor. Issa the Rabbanan, Issa no. But here, if you want your money back, he has a right to say, not many Rishonim hold that Yain Nesich is not Usa Banua nowadays. I don't want to go, it's a whole Riches why. Because the Goyim, not because they don't worship Avodah Zorah, they stop Manasach wine for Avodah Zorah. They don't have this thing anymore.
Stop serving wine to
No, they don't pour wine for Avodah Zorah.
They do all the time.
Buddhas, not Catholic.
They drink wine, but they don't pour wine. The drink is blood, but they don't pour wine. They don't, right? I'm not teaching book in the
He's talking about America, not in Asia.
Right, there are other places they do.
Could be, yeah, in Asia, Far East. Machna? Yeah.
So yain netzach is if they're using it for Avodah yain stam.
Yain stam is when we go to stam. We accept that it's Chavas very machmir if you're Sfardim, follow Sfardim. But we Ashkenazim say that now. So the Masha Negeya, the money, she doesn't have to pay for the wine. But
Okay, the guy, the owner doesn't have to pay for it.
doesn't have to give it back. But but she may trade for all the food. Let's say she has a pot full of food still left. But that is only called an agrama. And if I understand, it was a mistake.
Correct.
Agrama by mistake, we learned you can't have someone to pay.
Speaking of Yidei Shema.
No.
No. Yeah, there is B'dei Shemaim. You're
There is
right.
B'dei Shemaim?
There is B'dei Shemaim.
Then he has to pay.
B'dei Shemaim, if he's a Elcha guy, he has to pay.
He was honest
What
enough to follow up until
are we talking about paying for? For the wine or
Well, for the food,
For
for the
everything.
headache.
For the food, and if the pots are trade for the pots.
Was it right now? Let's say she has leftover food she threw out, worth
Right.
$100. We'll have to pay $100 food.
So, okay, so that's.
Now, the
if
third
it was
part.
200 and 100 is already eaten.
Then he only has to pay for the 100 left.
Okay.
And the third thing, which is the most important thing, is how do you kasher those china, which is very expensive. The pot I imagine was made from metal, so the pot you get kasher. China is klicheres. Even it's expensive. I just want to say it used to be once upon a time bone china, but I don't think it's not in style bone china. Even the ones that are expensive china, it's still china, just very, very elaborate, designs, whatever, and that makes it expensive. So normally it's really klicheres. Now klicheres you cannot kasher. So now she has a bunch of plates which is treif. So she now. To make the question worse, it got mixed in all the dishes. Let's say she has 5 soup bowls, got mixed in the soup bowls, whatever it was. So I asked the rabbi, the question really is, did she use a serving bowl? It means the pot into a serving bowl. I imagine if it's a wealthy people, they didn't bring the pot to the table, like in Heimish Eve, probably took the pot, poured it in a serving bowl. On the serving bowl, served onto the plate.
And
so
the ladle doesn't count?
Yes, so it becomes maybe a shlish or a revi. The ladle, it depends how you use that. The Shulchan Aruch holds, the Alter Rebbe is machriya, if the ladle was inside the pot until it started boiling, it has a keilah issue. But if it wasn't inside the pot, it's taking off the fire, you took it off, you could call it a separate keilah. So it's a keilah issue is the pot, the ladle is a keilah sheni. And the serving bowl is shlishi, the plate is the revi.
No, you can go more. The spoon that takes it out of the serving bowl is not a cake.
Yeah, depends. I have to ask the lady how she did it.
Well, no one pours it
So
out.
if it's a keli shlishi, you don't have to kasher it. Okay? If it's a keli sheni, let's just say, it's a huge machlokes. The Ramud paskins that a keli sheni is not the leia. That's what the Ramud paskin. The minig oila was to be machmed. Some Srs05 says the minig oila was to be machmed keli sheni. Here, there's another big kuda. It got mixed up, those plates, into other plates. Got mixed up. So if it got mixed up, it becomes bottle. Now, there's a famous question. The famous question is it called a dubashesh lamatina? You know what dubashesh lamatina is? Let's say 5 of the plates got mixed into 10 plates. Okay, so we have 5 non-kosher plates. So the halacha is that since there's a way to kasher to make it okay, easy, that's duvar sheyesh lo matir, something that you could undo easily, kasher all the kelim. And first of all, you cannot kasher cheres, you cannot kasher cheres. It's not kasherable. So mamela, if I'll explain later another, but if then it becomes bottle, there's no problem. So the Rabbi asked me, there's a famous Taz says that you should, even with the whole chad tray butel, we have 1 piece of meat. I want to tell you a frightening kula, which many people don't know. If 1 piece of meat, tray for meat, got mixed into 2 pieces of meat, everything cold, let's say 1 salami got mixed into 2 slices of salami. One's from, I forgot the name of the non-kosher one into the kosher, or 1 hot dog.
Hebrew national with kosher inflation.
Gallo salami.
Okay. Anyway, so it becomes mixed in, and you have we say chad the tray bottle. You I eat it, but 1 person shouldn't eat it. Think of the sound. But plates, it doesn't apply to plates. I don't eat 5 plates at one time. You know what I mean? I eat 1 plate. I'm eating 1 plate. You're eating 1 plate. You're eating. So it doesn't apply this chomer by plates. Understand? So we don't have to worry about it. Third of all, if it's an Eini ben yoinoi, it's nice and tam of gam. The chlal we don't have to worry about. Just the bikumer. So someone, let me add something to this. So someone I was sitting next to me, heard the shalos. He asked me, isn't there an opinion that wine becomes bottle on the 6th? Let me explain this. I don't know, there was a big settle hanging, and Rabbi made a big tumult about it,
Yeah.
but there's a big machlokes if yain eser becomes bottle b'shishu or b'shishim. That means if you need 6 times the amount or 6 deep times the amount. The Gemara says clearly, wine becomes bottle b'shisha. Now the question is, The Gemara is wine by wine and water becomes bottle of shisha. How about wine with other things? With schnapps, yash, I forgot how it's called, these things.
Cognac, there's wine in it.
Well, no, the other ones, sherry, it's called, these things, where there's a question of wine. So if it's never 60.
Sherry is wine. It's not a gas. It's a single malt whiskey that uses the gas.
But there's wine, there's certain schnapps that has a certain percent of wine
In it, liquors, whatever.
So those things. No, anyway, so it's a machlokes. If you need six, me'ikaradin rav poiskim hole becomes a bottle of hashish. So someone has schnapps that has whatever the name, I forgot the name, which it has 6 times the amount of wine.
You're allowed to drink it.
But by food, it says very clearly in the Remu and in the Shach, when you pour wine into food, you need 60.
It's crazy of a name.
I don't know. It's a whole
But bottle of shishim is 60 times the amount of food, but even if you can still taste
No.
the wine.
No.
No?
That's because it's mevatel the town.
But we assume when 60 is above the top, if this taste is still there with the oscar.
Yeah.
That's a separate issue. I mean, that's clear. But the truth is that he was asking me, he remembered it becomes bottle of the shisha, but we don't say it becomes bottle of the shisha on
Because of food.
Pouring wine into food, you need 60. So really the food was not kosher. So you can assume the plates was a keli sheni, or shlishi I'm saying, or a vi. So you don't kasher, if it will be a keli sheni, that's...
So the serving bowl.
Now, the serving bowl is a problem. You got to find out how a serving bowl is from Klicheres. That's a real problem.
So to the ladle you said, that if the ladle was put
That's how she did it.
after it was off the fire.
Let's say she put the ladle on the pot was on the fire, so the bowl is a shame, which is a real problem.
So those utensils, the bowls that you say, would for sure be a problem, let's say that ladle or the pot, or if there's no way to kosher it, does she have the right to go back to that owner and say, hey, pay me for my ladle, my plastic ladle that,
That's right, Dina Shemaim, guys, to the mensch.
I'm a shemai.
Yeah. But Dina Shemaim, the guy has to ask for the money. I mean, it's not like, most people say that. Looks like this lady couldn't care less.
This lady couldn't care less. She cared about the dish.
Yeah,
She
just
wanted
the
to know about the
most
dish.
people, happens, what can I do, But Dina Shemaim, you're right, Dina Shemaim is that the person has a right to demand Dina Shemaim.
So today,
How does it calculate?
One second, what did you say?
today, when there is no really using wine for idol worship, usually,
In America.
when a non-Jew picks up a bottle of non-commercial wine, the wine's still forbidden, right?
If it picks it up itself, it's not so terrible.
He shakes it, whatever.
No. It picks up a closed bottle.
No, it's open.
It's open, it picks up, it's still okay. It's only when he starts pouring, it's a problem.
If he pours it, it's a problem.
Right? Before pouring, it's not a problem.
So if the waiter picks out the cork,
It's usually takes out it's not a problem. Shouldn't do it if it's chilul, but it's not a problem.
And if the wine is thrown out, the dish gets thrown out.
No, but it's kosher. It's
kosher wine.
It's kosher. Pouring, once it starts pouring, then it's a bit machlekes.
Now, pi Kabbalah, it's different. But if you mix it in,
Kabbalah is a mistake. Let me explain that.
Okay.
The Kabbalah is based on the shnu that says not to make kiddush on wine which the goy sees directly, not a bottle of wine. That means if the wine, let's say this would be wine, and I have it in a cup, and the goy sees it doesn't become yain esav. The shlu or kiddush says don't make kiddush.
but when he takes the cork off, he doesn't see the wine in there, why not?
It's my understanding that when the goy takes a bottle and shakes it, or a cup and shakes it.
Mother says that it becomes yain esav. In those days, there used to be manasav dapen. Shulchan says they don't manasav dapen. So the goy just picks up a bottle and hands it over to you. It's not a problem. Shouldn't do it like a chilul. It's not a problem.
at the risk of sounding dumb on this question, wine itself is not treif. There's nothing treif in it. It's the fact that it might be served to a god. I mean, idol worshiper. So it's not treif itself. So why wouldn't that be a difference in the cooking itself? If you're saying she poured wine in, it was kosher.
It was non-kosher.
No, it wasn't kosher.
I understand. I'm saying the
He's
wine
worried
itself.
about the guy that made the
ingredients.
wine, Benny. That's what he said, that's why he touched it.
The wine was a Gallo wine company.
No, I understand, but wine itself, grapes are kosher. It's not that they're not, the ingredients aren't
The goy
kosher.
touches wine.
Right, the Chacham said, and then they, in the Gemara, it talks about this, how it evolved over the years. It changed, the laws changed. So when you look at it, you go, it itself is kosher. It's not like chazer, which is not kosher. It's kosher. It just is yayin nesach because a guy made it, a guy touched it. So wouldn't that have a difference on the dishes because itself it's not?
No.
It the klicheres, which takes it.
It's a Chazal said it's a chefzer de cedar. It's true that it began. The issa is the real wine. The main issa. It's good to know this. The main reason the Chazal asked. When the first kun of Chazal wine came also, it's a pirkei de blazer that says by Torah by Hilchos. When I smell served wine, when it says how did the Bnei Yisrael seduce the men? They serve wine, and then they, got them all heated up and get them to sin. So at that time, Pinchas, it is dinoi or geyser that are touched, goy, you shouldn't, if a goy touched wine, not to drink it. Really, the Gemara says the main issa was intermarriage. You sit down with the goy, with a glass of wine. That's the main reason about it was in. But once the Chazal said it's osir, it becomes osir. I think it's, even though it's...
Just answer what Benny said, there's an Asivas that says that every Isser Darabonin is only on the Gavin. And the Alter Rebbe clearly writes in the Geras Tshuva that it's not like this. That it's like you said, that it's
the Sivas asks the kasha. Now this halacha, the Sivas, let me explain this. I know this is that the belt argues under the Sivas, and there's many rise, but let me explain what let me start from the beginning. The Gemara is the Bryce, and it says, if someone sold you meat not kosher, and you ate the meat, if it's Isam and Atoida, I have a right to demand the whole money back. Someone sold you non-kosher meat, the story in Muktzeh, every person has a right to the guy, the man, every dollar that they ate, non-kosher. It's unfortunate, it's gone. If it's an Issa D'Rabbanan, guy sold me by mistake or even by Meizan Issa D'Rabbanan, I cannot demand the money back if I don't give back the food. So the Sida says, what should be the difference? What should be the difference? So the Sida says, the difference is that on Issa, the Issa D'Rai says Issa Chefza, and Issa D'Rabbanan is Issa Gavra. You know what that means? That the Chazer and the Veil is essence trade. It's not so Mamela's essence, it's got into my system, I wish to vomit it. The Rabbanan is, I shouldn't do it. But if I did it, it's just like I spoke Mushnara, unfortunately. I did something, it's not got into the... So that, the Chassidim said, the Kabbalah doesn't work out. It's not just the topic, it's what we decide. It's that, it's a the
Klippe goes in
it's based on the Zohar. But anyways, there's an Hilchos Shabbos says we can't do the seeds. That's a kasha book. It says in Hilchos Shabbos, show you in Chal Shabbos, you have to bring a korban. So you see that even on Issa D'Rabbanan. The Ramuz says a person is Machal Shabbos on Issa D'Rabbanan got to fast 40 days. 40 days.
That doesn't prove that it's a Issa Chefza.
No, because you got to do tshuva. The Sikh says you don't have to do tshuva because if you made it by mistake, there was no way to know.
Tshuva is one thing and money's another thing.
The point is that we're saying the INSF or whatever is there yes.
Yeah. But the truth is this, that's how the Sikhs explains this halacha. And the Welt asked, what Rabbi says, the time doesn't say that. No, Chassidus don't say. Issa Bishalakim has in itself, it's an Issa. Yain is in itself intrinsic. One now the Chazal Asim is also.
Why is Pasakim a government? I mean, it's a custom.
Pasakim?
Yeah.
The same Chazal Asim, that bread you shouldn't eat. You shouldn't socialize with the gun, you shouldn't eat this bread.
So, but this the rice is a government.
No.
It's the worst. The Issa the rice Chaza itself is the Klippus the Meis. So the Sida seems to say this is the Rabbanan, it's not the Klippus the Meis. It's just I should do it. So the Chassidim all claim that, but the Italians also Chassidish don't go down. So that Issa the Rabbanan itself has it's a Issa Chefza.
So Yain Nesach is the
Rabbanan.
The Rabbanan. So there's no Torah pasuk that says that a goy who picks up wine is a.
No, that's only one. If a guy is really manasseh wine, it's the
Then it's
rice.
No, but if he
If
just.
a guy touches wine, it's a strict to the one in the gesa.
So then what Benny said seems that if a goy today isn't worshiping.
Well, Chazal answered it anyways, even a Muslim that touches wine. Chazal said there's two reasons why, let me explain this. There's two reasons why wine is awesome. Reason number one, do not intermarry. That, you sit down, took a cup of wine, and come over, we'll drink, I cannot drink your wine. Then the Chazal added the Isser because the God used to have massive wine, so the Hitch, Isser, the Rabbanim Isser know too. Because of Chasnas, Bishalakim is Mitterbanua. The Goy cooked something, it's Mitterbanua. You could sell it. So why is Yain Isser worse? Because since the Goy used to pour wine for away the Zorah, so they added those Isser Anua. So the Shiurim say the Rambam says very clearly, this is in the sense of the Rambam, the Rambam has it inside. The Rambam says like this, the Muslims are not over the Zorah. If they touch wine, then it's not Usa Barani, it's Usa B'Shtiyah. If Christians are over the Zorah, they touch wine, it becomes Usa Barani.
So why isn't schnapps and beer? Because
The truth is,
Thank God.
beer,
Not Rosh Hashanah, so you can-
I'll tell you what, beer, many people don't know, beer is not mentioned in the Mishnah. Beer is a new invention. That doesn't mention in the Mishnah.
Similar to like.
It wasn't. It was the first time mentioned is in the Gemara.
Sheikh makes altar wine.
What?
Sheikh
is old wine, not beer. Beer is only mentioned in the Gemara. So Gemara did say they made it also, but only in the bar. So you're not
In the same bar,
Well, they're good.
What's the chasnas?
Yeah, you shouldn't. You're allowed to drink beer, but don't drink in a bar with a goy beer. That means you can invite the goy to your house to drink beer.
On a consistent basis. I'm just trying to be one of
That's the halacha now?
Very important to remember.
You can't drink beer in a bar.
No, you can drink kosher beer in the bar.
Can't drink beer in a bar.
It's a hash, you have a hash drink kosher.
Straight beer.
No, you can't drink beer with the guy in the bar. You can drink beer with Jews in
Can't
the
go to
bar.
bar.
You can't drink the bar. Kosher beer you can drink. What's the problem with drinking beer in the bar again?
It's not like
Customers.
Huh?
Customers. And my guy might see a shiksa there.
Where's our shield day?
Yeah, but the shiksa.
I'm saying, like these days in
Just saying,
Brooklyn,
Chazal said, you
walk
might.
from, they go to Black Hats and they go, they drink
Not
beer.
what I'm just saying, people don't know this. You're not supposed to drink in the bar.
So does that include like the hotel lobby?
That's the
big
people
question.
say that the hotel lobby is not a bar. It's like a hotel lobby.
It's just a
What about
area
restaurants?
where you can drink.
Restaurants, okay?
Kosher restaurants.
A conference. The conference is not a beer. It's not a bar. They don't give them beer at conferences. I went to a very kosher conference, big lawyers, and the question was they wanted to ask my assistant to come there. A big, they tell you with the two parties to go to it or not to tell you have these big lawyers. They served, they had whole big coffee, this expensive coffee. Nothing.
But it's nighttime, in the evening.
I don't know. Not from the beer. They was coffee, expensive percolated
That's
coffee.
with any alcohol, right? Or is it only beer that you can
Beer.
You can have vodka.
I just want to explain something very important for you guys. Schnapps is called a poor man's wine. It's a huge mistake that the Shulchan Aruch, your brother showed me in the Rebbe, the letter's right. You should not make kiddush on schnapps. It's very clear. Even though if it's kosher, but everyone agrees that it's chila, you must make kiddush on wine. So I see all from Chabad Chassidim come into my shul and they make kiddush on schnapps. The Shulchan Aruch. Shabbos B'day meaning is to do that, but the guys sometimes come and ask me to make a nirosa kiddush on schnapps.
No one makes it. Someone's parent, maybe that's it.
Yeah, but
Those are alcoholics.
Rabbi, we don't have wine in the shul.
So, can I just finish up on the scenario with the woman and the dishes, right? If she's very position to take to say, hey, even though there are Hiurim to allow it, I'm going to throw everything out or something like that? Or would you say that Dafki should not do that?
That's a very good question. Now let me answer that question. This is the question that often, even Talmid Chacham make a mistake. Let me tell you, there is a Yishalma. Yishalma says like this: Chazal originally asked oil a goy makes, and then they took the Isser, and they said if you learn the Gemara Masechet V'Zura, shemen was included with milk and wine and cooking, pas. Chazal took it off. So the Shalom says, why did they take it off? Because the Chazal asked it because the goy processes his oil in his kelim, in the kelim of the goy. So it gives a taste. You can imagine the shiksa next door processes oil in her kelim, so it gives a taste. When it says no, Shalom says stam kelim eine b'nei yoyma. You know what that means? We have a right to assume that even though she processed the oil, it was 24 hours old, the keli, then it's nice and time of God. So the Shalom says that, I forgot that Rabbi Shul wanted to be machmer. I'm going to be machmer, nice and time of God. And I say in English, he said altruistic, he used the word.
I don't know what you
He used it wrong. It doesn't matter. He used it wrong.
Okay. Well, it means, but machmer should be machmir, I think you meant. So the kids, a guy, the Shana says, he tells him, the Rav says to Shmuel, if you're going to be machmer, you're zucker mamre. So you know what a zucker mamre means? A zucker mamre means a guy who argues with the Sanhedrin. Sanhedrin said it's okay, and an individual argues, the Gemara, the Torah says, he chayv skila. So he said to him, if you're going to be machmer, you're zucker mamre. Because Chazal said nois and town of Gam is meter. Finish once Chazal is meter, there's no place to machmer. When people are machmer, always is because they don't know, they're not learned. Or when it's a big mechalik sapaskin, why not be machmer? But what they hear, the kelim ain't even yoymer. Now there's nothing you can do. You can't kasher, right? And became bubble. There's no reason to be machmer. There's absolutely, if you're machmer, you don't believe in bittul bereif. You don't believe in any b'yayim. Such a case, if someone's going to be machmir, is a zukkah number. Because it's any ben yoimim, it's no time of gam, and it got mixed up with other kelim, and we cannot kasher. Cheres really big radin. There's a way to kasher. When we became kasher, and so we made it. No reason to be machmir.
You said before it becomes a cliche if the Swiss lady's housekeeper washed it together with the pot. With hot water, wouldn't that cause it?
That was not the question.
Well,
No one washes the fine china with the pot.
no, but you put it in the dishwasher.
And therefore?
You don't, I'm not fine.
What do you say, that the pot will make all of these?
Wouldn't it cause everything to become a pollution because the hot water that moves around?
No, first of all, it is maybe a keli shaving. Maybe. Because in the dishwasher, it's a iri from a keli rishon, which hits a keli, and then it bounces off, it's a keli sheni.
Well, the time of the soap is there's a time of the
What?
You can tell that the dishwasher
I don't know.
is there's a time of the
Is it?
If you put soap in it,
If you put a lot of soap. And second of all, the dishwasher could be ili hanifsik akluch. You know what that means? You know, there's a din that ili is mavashik kalifa, right? What happens if I pour it and I broke the pour?
so before hit it, it's not.
For it, it's not connected. That's called nifsik akluch. You know what I'm saying? You're pouring water and I picked it up. So the water that's falling is not connected. So that is not even called an iri, it's a less. I don't know how, I asked a physicist many years ago, and one physicist told me that when you have the things turning very fast, it's nifsik akluch, and another physicist told me it's not true.
Interesting. In a dishwasher.
I asked them if when it turns so quickly, what happens? Does it get cut off from, you understand what I'm saying? Does it get cut off from the original flow? It's nifsik akluch or not nifsik akluch? So one person said it is, one person said it.
Depends how fast your dishwasher is.
That shouldn't make a difference. Shouldn't make a difference. I thought for sure, because I watched as a young child, and you used to have the sprinklers used to turn outside. They always looked to me that it's nifsik akluch.
By the time it hits the ground, it is ready.
Yeah, it just smeared. It always sounded that it's not.
Of course, it's turning.
Because one question, by all kelim though, yain cold, not cooked, what doesn't
Not a
make it,
problem.
not a problem. It doesn't matter.
Unless it sits there for 24 hours.
Unless it's made to sit there for a long time. Okay.
And kasha in the China.
China, the Ikaradi cannot kasha, it's klicheres, but there is a Rishona, Rabbi Shalakin says that something that's ein ikra isum in Torah, you could kasha 3 times. So yain nesach is a problem, you cannot. But if you keep it for a year's time, and Moshe has a finished tshuva, you keep it for a year's time, you can kasha it 3 times.
Now, why do we have to keep it for a year's time? If less than time of
24 hours. It's not. It's not a real problem. That's the time you have to kasha it, it's okay. Let me explain this.
It's like I'm one for the cave, and then you wait 24 hours.
Listen, let me explain something. This would have been a Kedi Rishon, not a Kedi Shlisha, or Kedi Shem Yomach.
And you wait 24 hours.
Even though it's Nois Tam of Gam, Chazal Aseh, Nois Tam of Gam, this is very, very important. I know this is confusing, but let me, if you brought it up, I'll explain something. Nois Tam of Gam is better. That means if I cook something, if someone cooked for you in a Kedi, the typical shala is, people call me up, you know, my daughter put up a thing and a fleshige pot. I remember the lady screaming on the phone. She didn't realize I picked up the phone and screamed, "You batched up my supper tonight." So what happened? The young teenager went and cooked lakshan with cheese in a fleshige pot. So I said to her, "Calm down. You could eat it." "What?" I said, "Bring me a portion. I'll eat it." She became she was speechless on the phone because the keli is eini ben yoimai. It's a fleshige pot, but it's eini ben yoimai. So the Elchonon said you're allowed to eat it, but we have to kasha the pot. Why do we have to kasha? Even though we wait 24 hours, Chazal said if you tell me you're not to kasha, then you're going to use it a ben yoimai. Eini ben yoimai uti ben yoimai. Understand? That's the problem.
So the pot you have to kasha.
So you have to kasha even though you waited 24 hours because Chazal asked Eini ben yoimai uti ben yoimai. So that's clear. If it'll be a real problem, you have to kasha. Problem is when it's not a real problem, or it's a let's say it is bottle baroid. Let's say it's really problem the China dishware. There is a problem. It got mixed in with the other keli and it becomes bottle baroid. Shulchan says it becomes bottle baroid. No reason to be machna because you know if it's a bit baroid. But
should you be machna and run it for dishwashing?
there's nothing doesn't help. It doesn't help. Klicher doesn't help pushing through dishwashing. I get very in touch when people want to be machna. I wish we would be machna and hard that way. I always say to myself, it is. When I tell people that certainly you could do it, what? There's no harm in the supper should go into the garbage. The question is how to kasha the pots. That, I hope I explained this. It's a little confusing.
It's very confusing because everybody thinks that if you cook in a fleshig pot or cook in a melting pot,
It's finished.
it's finished.
So that's what the first thing you learned today. That if it's a stam kelim is eini ben yoimai, the food you could eat.
If you know, let's say if you know, you ask the person that you use the
Most
most
90% of the time it's eini ben yoimai.
So the reason that you have to kasher a pot is not because the food might become non-kosher.
The food right now is kosher.
That you might end up
Using
cooking
the pot,
day by day
exactly.
by day. But really, the same reason with the dishes. You don't have to. You can put it in. You're not really eating on a non-kosher plate, but you don't want to get into the idea of actually using one.
Yeah,
per
Chazal
day.
said that since
It's not a
real-
kashrut issue.
Right.
It's a
Right. Very, very, very. Yeah, you said it well. You put it in the good words, exactly. It's a problem of kashering, how to kasher. So if it demands a kashering, the question is we have a problem. If it doesn't demand kashering, then we have no problem. And if it demands kashering, it becomes bottle baroid, then we also don't have a problem.
There's no kashrut issue there. So
Right?
my thing that scares me is when you said you could put one piece of non-kosher meat with 2 pieces of kosher meat and eat it, and you're.
I didn't say that.
But you're actually going to be
So
eating
you can put
non-kosher
it-
meat, even though
If
it's
it happens,
Why would you do that?
Torah says it's okay.
Okay, would you eat it?
I want to tell you a very important fact. You know, from every 100 chickens that's made, there's about 2 or 3% that's not kosher. So I am, I'm not the Tanya, not a holy person. Maybe all of you are holy, but I imagine we all ate non-kosher meat. but it's kosher. The Torah said, Achrei Rabbi Lahatis. The Torah said, you don't have to check it. When I come to the next world, I have nothing to worry about. So the Rosh says, why? Because the Rosh has a big chiddush. The Rosh runs Nehevach Issa Liois Heter. The Rav literally changes the Issa into Heter. There's such a famous Rosh. You understand what I mean? That means what happens, essence. But the truth is that every person had to be Samech Harav. There's no way you ate chicken, or every eat you're not Samech Harav. There's no such a thing. Every 100 chickens, there's at least 1 or 2 that's not. We ate 100 chickens. If you work with statistics, every one of them ate non-kosher chicken. Right? Nothing to worry about. Because it is kosher. If Hashem says to you, don't worry about it, I'm boss. You could be Samech Harav Natas. Nothing to worry about. There's a story with the Moshe Feinstein. He wasn't by a wedding. And he started eating. There was a Chassid Sher, but then says that Moshe, you can trust. The Moshe was very humble, says like this. And I'm going to come to the next world and have to give them a cheshbon. I'm going to tell the Rebbeinu Shalom, you gave me guidelines, and I followed the guidelines. You said to me, Ed Elchonon B'Sirim. You have one, Ed, you trust him? I trusted him. If it goes wrong, you gave me the rules and regulations. There's nothing I can do. He says, but if a guy doesn't trust Ed Elchonon B'Sirim, something goes wrong, what is his excuse going to be? If a guy doesn't follow the rules of the Torah, it says Ed Elchonon B'Sirim.
You're over Machmir.
You're very Machmir. I don't trust you. I don't trust you. I don't trust you. I don't trust you. We suffer from not trusting. You know, if you're not my cup of tea, I don't trust you. So maybe then, if you don't trust Ed Elchonon B'Sirim, then what are you going to say if you did something non-kosher? There's an interessante Rambam and the Perish of Shnais. You know, I said it over when it happened, the Muktzeh story. There's a Mishnah, the way the Rambam wants to Shabbat and Torah Mishnah, there's a Mishnah that says like this. You know, they used to sprinkle, if a person gets tumah mess, you have to sprinkle the 3rd and the 7th day. You know, so the time the Smigdish, the Sanhedrin, was in charge, appointed an expert, because there's very many halachas, how to gather the water, which Keli, very complicated. If you know the Mishnah's part, it's very complicated. Hired someone, and people used to line up and they used to sprinkle. You have to know the right measurement. It's a whole issue. So the Mishnah says like this: if a guy was serving on the best, was online, and turned out something he didn't do right, he went to the Semitic Tumah, he doesn't have to bring a coat. He relied on the Kashrus organization there. But if you did it yourself, and you messed up, then you have to bring a chatos. Understand what it says in the Rambam? It means if you rely on the Ashgocha. I said, with the Muktzeh people, I have my cousins live there, the Taubers live in Muktzeh. So I told one of them there was a dying there, explained to the people, he was soymech on the Kashrus organization. You will not have to bring a chatos. If you do it yourself, a guy is a shoichet himself, and a guy does manich himself, and he batches it up, then he's got a problem. But here we're saying the tzibur, it's less and less of a problem.
So, what's the issue then with corningware that is a dairy corningware, and you end up cooking chicken in it? The chicken would be necessarily kosher, but you can't kosher the corningware. But after
glass, it's glass.
No, I'm talking glass. I'm talking like it's
Clay.
It's clay.
Yeah.
You
You can't kosher it, but after 24 hours, there's no
kasher,
texture, right?
It doesn't make a difference. But the Chazal said since it need to be kasher, it was a lasa.
So you throw it out?
You throw it out. But
Corning is glass.
no, I'm not talking about
You're talking about something that's not glass.
There are people that know how to heat it up to the.
Yes, you go. I have someone who asked me, you could get online, you could buy tray online, plates. A guy in my neighborhood has very, very expensive plates. Got it. She got married 30 years ago, and it's very, very rare design. So today she looked up on the internet. You could get it, and they tell you we probably bought it. Honest, we bought it from an estate.
All right, these replacements, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? So guy asked, I said you can't buy it.
And it's not used for a year.
It doesn't make a difference. It's not something that only if it happened. So the guy's, his wife is a Deutsch. So he went, he did get it, and he went to downtown to I say,
Killing.
kill, and he put it in, and the design did not come off. It's 1,000 degrees, Mamash had to make it, and he was convinced, look, I was good, and it came out good.
Therefore what?
That's kosher.
You can cash it in a kilter.
Killing.
K-I-L-N.
You're killing. In the same
It's the
Kabbalah.
same heat that they use to make it.
Yes.
But
But
you
Rabbi Tauber is saying that normally the design would melt, and it's kind of have mazli did it melt.
No, the people are skilled, they know how to raise the heat slowly to that point, so that it doesn't.
But after 24 hours, there's
There is a taste, it's not the time of God. And when you put them so high, the machlik is.
even after 24 hours, the taste remains.
There is a taste, but it's pogum. Pogum means, how you say pogum?
Bad.
How you say
It's
pogum?
a Yiddish word. It's a problem. No, bad.
It's a bad taste, not bad, it's an off taste.
You just throw the vessel away and get a new one. It's not-
That's what happened, if it's the clay, just throw it away.
Back onto this, the woman, if she, you said that if she doesn't rely on their abundant, there's a big problem there.
And the din.
On the din. So, should she let Chatchila use it, or could she go on eBay, you sell it for half price? And,
Tell her she doesn't want it, I'll buy it,
I mean, are you flaunting their? I'm trying to think of the right word. If you don't use them and you try to be more machmer,
There's no reason to be more
then how come there's all these chumras on? We talked about many other subjects, specifically the Hilchos Pesach comes to mind.
Hummus is based whenever it's a machlokes.
Hilchos Pesach, there's no machlokes. It's just an old Russia.
It's an exception.
Exception. Exception.
So that one area.
Besides basic, there's no.
Kolamachman is a chayta, kolamachman is a gasruach. You have all these expressions.
But Pesach is a separate issue. And the reason, history, everything has a reason. Well, when we start speaking, you have to remember how things were. See, I like to put things in perspective to people. I explained to a group of others people why the Sephardic Jews always slept in the sukkah and the Ashkenazim didn't. It's nothing to do with the Sephardim and Ashkenazim. The Sephardim lived in warm countries, so it's geschmack sukkahs. Ashkenazim always lived in cold country, it was so needed an excuse. I was thinking the sukkah, so it was bitter cold. The real reason is that the Hilchos says, I go to Oman, it's freezing cold. Imagine 2 weeks later, it's freezing cold. One year it was ice all over, depends on the season or whatever. So the Hilchos talks about in these days how much snow is not to be on the sky. So that's why the Ashkenazim originally didn't. Certain things how involved and how it became, So Chumras, the Pesach was, how did Chumras done? You lived in a home, you had flour all over, it wasn't like sealed in a container, enclosed. You ever saw pictures, old paintings, and how the kitchen looked. There was a flour here, and there's here. I say hygiene, they say hygiene. It was not, people have food outside, big deal, what's the problem? Today, don't eat the food, there's bacteria grows, but they live in a whole different society. So guy brings you food, how do you know the flour's not on? It was much, today, the biggest problem of chametz, you know what the biggest problem of chametz is? Matzah. That's a big problem. None of the processed food has any chashash of matzah, if it's checked out. The biggest problem you have is the matzah that you're eating.
My shirt was the cup of can on instead of the cup of
Yeah, it's the same. Any other question? Okay. But the truth is, people have asked me, someone asked me from this neighborhood, I don't know who it was, came into my office, tried to convince me, I should say, it's okay, he wanted to go selling non-kosher wine. He's a sales guy. So French wine, he was importing non-kosher French wine. So I said to him, I pulled out the sheet, he looked at the client, know how to learn. He says, Shulchan says, it's chela not to do it. That means you shouldn't do it. I said, if you have no other panos, you have a house with a young guy, why go into such a panos? The guy has no other panos, it's the only panos he has. Got to feed his children. With chela, we don't deal. Wine is a problem. We don't deal with it.
So guy buys a business liquor store. So he should stop the whole back part of the business and not sell it.
You own a Ralph's.
We're saying you shouldn't buy the liquor store. Once you buy the liquor store, it's
So you own a Ralph's and they have a liquor license, you sell wine, you know.
Okay, you do some more of these,
Oh, probably could do Stam Chila for that. But the question is, and just explain, wine is, today became Chila, don't do it, but you have it, it's okay. People, every chagim, people tell me, people, they get wines,
you don't have to throw in the
There's no securities if you sell wine.
it does make a difference. But the question is, it's Isabanu, like a Chila. It's not a kid, you're allowed to sell cheeses, non-kosher cheese. You can't sell chazer, you're allowed to sell cheeses. But wine,
meat, also you're not allowed to
you're not
sell.
allowed to sell meat. But wine is an abundant Isser Hanua. So the Rishonim say nowadays, Ashkenaz we're not knowing that way because they're going in Abanasa. But that's not like a Tchela, the school that they have. Okay.
See if we're over here.
We're up to Ahmed Dov. Come back to the Shabbos. So he says, Tauber, the Rabbi says, Tauber, she'ain to the scale below. Doesn't have a Toilis Keli, she also kisi le Keli, made a couple of Keli, nasu with Toilis Keli on the Krach, and meet them at Talpilo.
before Shabbos.
Before Shabbos. Those good old days, you didn't have, I want to take interesting halacha. In the times of the Shulchan Aruch talks about an interesting thing, I pointed it out. They used to put a dough on top of a pot. It's a cover. So the guy asked me, why did you put a dough? He says, you have to understand the good old days, our pot cover fits exactly. So well fitted, has a tiny hole that shouldn't blow up. You know what I mean? It's, has a little air pocket to escape, and it's made gewaldig. Made gewaldig. Those days, the pot cover, there was a mess that's, that was on it. So to seal it, they put dough. So it says in Shulchan Aruch, you're allowed to put dough on the pot and put the cover on it. But why should a guy put dough? He's asking me on a pot. That's how they sealed it. We live, sometimes it's frightening how comfortable we don't even appreciate it. So the Chab says, they used to cover things with just anything they have. He made something to make it fitting, he says. That means if he made something, he never used it. He took a piece of wood and he designated it and he showed this piece of wood as a cover for the keli. It looks very lopsided, but it looks like it's okay. But if he uses it, he doesn't even have to make. That means if I have a raw piece of wood, I have to do something to it to show that it's not muktzeh. But if I used it during the week, that piece of wood, then it becomes a keli just by using it.
Does it have to be permanently for that?
It doesn't have to be your permanent time. If your time where you're living, they would use it for permanent, even though you're not planning to use it for permanent, it's not muktzeh. Okay. Nowadays it'll be muktzeh. No, your wife is going to throw it out before you have a chance to turn around.
So that's why the rock by the door.
Right. The rock by the door is no good because nowadays we know one would use it.
Don't forget, the rock by the door was not even designated from before Shabbos. Here it's designated from before Shabbos.
It was designated for a few weeks, but so what? Because it's sure it's not going to use it forever. It's just, till it'll be nudges or only to fix the door.
Right.
So he says, Nishtam l'kisavot yoyim k'lepamach zeh toris k'ele shamit l'taltel b'Shabbos. Ab yishal yusashim nasa shetikin. Med v'remedu v'shedark l'osay s'elkisik v'chtichas l'surim. Something that normally you make. kiyoysim. That's normally they used to cover with wood. So it's so hard for us to imagine this. Avo do a shendarkoit, he found he stole a rock. I'm going to cover the pot with the rock. Apishin shtamel guzel kisif pamayim rabbis, b'chol many awkward times. Kan ever she kisif by his pirchovi, his pumer apusel talmud shabbos boy she's bad. Very clearly, those days you never covered a pot with stone. So if you went, you covered the pot with the stone, it shows that it's not. It's you're not going to. It's going to be a mix. You're going to throw it out. So it's Muktzeh. So this says Choser v'kisikelim. I saw. I was in New Jersey in Lakewood. They don't have it anymore. When I lived in Lakewood, I went to Lakewood after I got married. This is quite a while, 35 years ago. So the garbage was a hole in the ground. You have to pick up a garbage can from the ground. That was the only place I saw it. It was neat. It was such a headache. They stopped doing it. But that's the garbage collectors would come. It was very neatly. You didn't see any garbage cans out. It was a hole in the ground. Like if the city gives garbage bins, those days the city had a loch, would make the hole and put in a certain type of garbage. And so those is that's what the Shulchan was talking about. You have something covered in the ground. If you cover it with something, it looks like boiler. So the Chazal aser. If you have a hole in the ground, you want to cover it, do not cover Shabbos. People are going to say, cover the hole there. Unless it's mamish, you see it's a cake. So there were more machmer on the kisi. It looks like going. He says, that's what he said. Kisi bar vedus. Bar means a building from, and I don't know if I said it over here, the Toysis brings down and set the Shabbos. Then someone many years ago showed me an article that archaeologists used this as a proof. How do you know a Jewish home was a Jewish home? How do you know in France and Germany a Jewish home was a Jewish home? Every Jewish home had a hole in the kitchen. So they put in before Shabbos coals to warm up the hole. They put the pot in the hole and covered it. So if you ever want to know if this was a Jewish home, if there was a hole in the ground, it was a kitchen home. That's not how things work. The Jews were very innovative, which we don't even appreciate, because you know why they had to do it? Who could afford? You know what the most expensive thing about the story of Kamsa, the story about the Chorban? So the Gemara says he gave his keys for the oitzer, how you say oitzer, the
treasure
storage. He allowed other people. The storage for fuel, he kept himself. Fuel in the times till recently was the most expensive.
So the energy, energy is
not
the most expensive commodity. Energy
it's still not the most expensive. It doesn't cost leaving the gas and running the whole Shabbos in Balkis.
Correct.
It's Balkis. They couldn't afford such a thing. Burning the thing the whole Shabbos. So they made a small hole in the ground, warmed it up, and I'm saying we don't even begin to appreciate how lucky we are. It is really frightening. It's a little rain, you get uncomfortable. It's raining. We're going this way. Okay. Anyway, so this is Choser Kisikelim al Kisik Bekuis Kun Kisik Bar this Abish Tik Nusa B'Masa Gam Shtampu B'Rav Chod Usa Tal Kim Usa Beis Achisa. It doesn't, just because you used it so many times, it's not good. It has to have a handle, because the Chazal said if it doesn't have a handle, it looks like you're building something. You're covering a hole in the ground, which is like building something, he says. Understand? So unless, you understand what he's saying? If you have a hole in the ground, you want to cover it, even if you cover it a whole week, you plan to use it, and it has to have a handle, otherwise it looks terrible, he says. The kisi kelim akuris b'kapter gamra is the just kisi kush goes elibnish ilial. Kol she'ini kuba b'kar kel gamra, apishi mechibel karkik on kaniri shuvimem. See, the ovens of those days had an oven. Oven was attached to the ground with cement. They had ovens. You had ovens that had it, but they had ovens. And so that oven, even though you're covering it, but since it's not buried in the ground, it's on top of the ground, even though it's attached to the ground, doesn't have this hunger. The Shulchan Aruch says they used to, it says Pesach, change the stick that you put on top of the oven. It seems like they used to cover the oven with the wood. So, Shulchan Aruch says, we just remember to cover that as a change the wood. So they used to cover it up, it's not a problem. Okay, this is not so much gay at all nowadays. This whole, trying to put a practicality, it's not gay at all. Okay, so the Mechaber on the Machet Shneim mit der Tat a little bit in cuts. You're allowed to take out the splinter Shabbos. You're allowed to take a Machet, a needle, even though it's a sewing needle, to get rid of a splinter. It's a Kedish Machtalesa. One time, I took her, my daughter had a new, she was young then, and she had a new suit for Shabbos, so the other forgot, and the labels hanging forgot. I brought her, took a scissor, she almost fainted. Took a scissor on Shabbos. What's the problem? A scissor is a Kedish Machtalesa. And it's I need a tzedek ufay, and but how can you cut off its how's it called, the plastic it's hanging? So I said that's not it's mekalkel. It's like ripping off a plastic bag. So you're allowed to take kedish machtalesa, the cut of a label. You're allowed to take a neat pen. That's a needle made to sewing. It's a kedish machtalesa to get rid of a splinter. The only thing you have to be careful is not to make it in a way that you're going to bleed. That you're not allowed to do.
And if you know for sure it's going to bleed?
Then you're not allowed to do it, Shabbos.
What about special tweezers that are meant for splinters? That's for sure you're allowed to.
That's for sure.
Because that wouldn't be considered.
It's not against Dr. Lisa.
It says a woman allowed to pluck her eyebrows?
No, it's a separate issue. Plucking eyebrows is ripping hair out of your hair is an issa da'isa. Combing your hair is an issa da'isa.
With the comb that are hard to comb.
Well, that depends on the hair. Can I know a house full of daughters? And each daughter is different. One of my daughters, the hair never falls out. Most of them, the hair just fall out. It depends on the hair. It's not a rule, but you cannot use a comb Shabbos.
What about, let's say you have a piece of your nail that's poking into your skin. You want to pull it out or you want to use it?
Nothing you can do. You have to be an Elchonon or to go to take it off.
So why is it not become? Because it's not mechanical, the act of fixing.
That's called, it's not called cutting nails. The problem of cutting nails comes up in the latest.
You're allowed to if it's half pulled off. You're allowed to pull it
Well,
off.
we don't know. We don't know what half pulls off means.
What about the skin that is around the nail? No, take it off. Even if
Not
it's-
bite your skin from your lips in Shabbos.
But even if it's hanging,
You know it's hanging. I know it's annoying. But you can't comb your hair and you cannot take out, pluck your hair down, so you can't do that, Shabbos.
So it doesn't matter what kind of comb you're using?
They comb and make sure that doesn't take out the hair.
So it's one of those, it's a brush, not a comb, that's better.
The salt brushes.
Okay, that's my wife.
it says something about placing the hair.
She uses a soft brush on the brush.
Salt brush. You have girls on how old are your girls?
It's 8 and 4.
Yeah, but a shadel it doesn't come.
But is there a problem?
It does not about neither.
It's
not-
mechanical.
it's not-
Every hair costs $10, my friend. Every hair.
But it's not attached to the
No, that's another $50.
So you want to use a brush for a
shakel on Shabbos?
You could use a brush for the
But
shadel.
it's almost like you're using, it's like a loom, once you like bring the combs are going through and separating, it's not a problem.
Your hair comes out, that's a problem. So you cannot, the nail, what's the gay? If a woman forgets to cut a nail is hanging, we have to have a shiksa to take it off. I mean, there's a lot.
Is there a shiksa by the mikvah?
Yeah, we have the guard, So
And the wealthiest woman in the world was
That's a different one.
No, it's one that cleans the mikveh. Not the regard to it.
God is young Mexican. But I told her, explained to her about, the first time the mikveh lady asked me, she was like, what? She thought it was all this focus.
When we come also time to Ashmasha, it's not before the Shavuos, no?
No, right, Keep it right, and it's dark already. Okay. Oh, so the bavad she's mit ihre sekotche kleine schläge zu down to make sure no blood. Aber da die shesh be mishim khoyv, ab shin mischav al kach ki bishnoit bin shim sikray shel yumis. If you take out the way for sure you're going to bleed, you can't take out the splinter. Kan in this hapach hakoch ben plus yev shel tzim shamli tzu zdam so let's see it. If it's you cannot take it out without bleeding, then it's awesome.
Sometimes it's dangerous. It causes